we inherently have negative reactions towards things. I'm not quite sure why this is. I've noticed it in myself and in others as well. There are if you can take a positive approach and have a positive response, um, it's always much it's always much better. I think life is much brighter and more colorful if people can do that. And I'm not sure that in this example, it's for me it's similar to you know we're in yoga where they say focus on your mind, and it's like if you focus on your mind, you can't let go because you're focusing on your mind. It's sort of contradictory. And I think about if you're thinking about your thoughts too much, you stop the flow. So I think there are times when we need to be aware of what we're thinking, and times when we think about shouldn't think about it at all. Maybe just make the intuitive decision. Um, and I think it's worth realizing what the first impression or first reaction is. And I think if most people look at their own reactions to things, a lot of people are quite shocked that their reactions to things are often negative. When maybe,
Negative.
and I don't know what it is about society or the world or whatever, because I think it's something connected with adults. I don't think kids have that. I don't think kids have that negativity. I think maybe it's given to kids by adults who've had a lot of experiences or worried that something bad might happen to the kids or something, and the children pick up on it and you know re-speak it, and it's not surprising if they're consuming certain kinds of media like the news on television or the news in newspapers. It's like I was in a shop yesterday and I saw the front. I never listen to the radio. I never watch TV. I never read newspapers. Um, and part of that is to stay positive, right? Because there's just so much
Mm-hmm.
negativity. It's crazy. And the front page of the newspaper was, "We only have 10 years to live," or 10 years to save the planet, or we're all going to die, or something. That was the front page of one of the newspapers. And I was thinking, what does that do to the kids? What if you're a kid, a young kid, and you see the front page of that newspaper, or your parents buy that newspaper, and you think, oh my gosh, the planet's going to
Yeah.
die in 10 years. And the truth is that nature is more powerful than people. So we will all be dead, and the planet will still be here. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that. So there's there's very little
It's
that
just
we can do that will destroy the planet because we will destroy ourselves first. And the planet will be here long after that. So,
but that's
uh,
10 years ago, according to this newspaper.
yeah, usually people who put time limits on things are wrong.
Usually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine telling all the children in the world there's no future.
Oh God. Why would you?
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Exactly. Why would you do that? Why would, isn't that a form of like from an extreme example, you could argue it's a form of child abuse, right? Telling children they have no future. So, it and how do you expect them to respond to that? How do you expect them to act? I mean, that if there truly was no future, you wouldn't tell them.
To save them from it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. If there truly was no future, you wouldn't tell them
Mm.
because maybe they can do something. You know, I you wouldn't. So it's frightening. It's absolutely frightening the negativity that's. I mean, you could. It was like day one, the first day of the new year. The world is going to end. I mean,
Well,
didn't we used to laugh at the newspapers who printed the world is going to end. We used to laugh at these people, and now the mainstream newspapers are printing that on their front page. Like it's the first,
Mhm.
welcome to the new year, the world is going to end. Um, and when people said the world is going to end, didn't we call them crazy religious cults? Yeah. And now it's like the mainstream news is like the world is going to end. So it's they've just become as crazy as everybody else. Put things in perspective. Realize that the world is not going to end. We just need to be nice to each other, and and
And
it'll.
everything around us, everything that lives.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Realize
Mm.
that we yeah, there are consequences to everything. And that doesn't mean that everything's going to be great. It just means that that we have to learn to be nice. Obviously, we still haven't learned that in a lot of parts of the world. I talked about that in the first part of the conversation today. I think about people not being nice, and it's like people would go out of their way to not be nice, like make up stories. That's if you're if you have to make up one story, my brain tells me you made up everything. That's what my brain tells me. If you have to make up one story, how do you know everything is not a fantasy, right? It's well, you could argue, well, everything can't be a fantasy, but that's that's not the point. I think that, in my experience, people who have made up stories about me have to wonder if they tell the truth about anything, and then you feel sorry for them because you realize they don't live in reality, and then you feel sorry
Mhm.
for their friends. And then you realize they have partners and kids, and it's like, fuck me, their parents are living in a world which is not real. What chance do those children have? But then you can't run in and save them because it's not your place to do that. Got to let
Yeah.
things be. So it's hard choices. How to stop negative thoughts? Number one, stop comparing yourself to other people. The only person you need to compare yourself to is you, the you that you were yesterday, basically. Um, two, serve someone else. Putting someone else first reminds you that we all need help sometimes, but without obligation. So many people help people because they're expecting some help back. It's so wrong. You just help people
Mhm.
just because. And people use that. People manipulate. I've seen so many people help people because they want something from them. And I tell you, that's a habit that I detest, that I really hate in people. I've seen that so many times. People doing something because they want something, and it's hard because I see my kids doing that. I see my
Oh.
I see my kids helping me because, like, my son will take out the rubbish because he thinks that he'll build up credits to get something that he wants, and
Mhm.
still have to deal with that. It's difficult. You should do it just because you have the opportunity to do it and want to do it, because if you attach other things to it and you don't get those other things, you just stop being
And
good.
you don't stop being very good. Mhm.
Uh, uh, reach reach out. Talk about the negative thoughts. I don't think we have to always talk about it with other people. I think that writing down things in a journal is a very good way of getting negativity out of ourselves. Also, the negativity can very often be a distraction, and most of the time be unreal anyway. Um, hey, once you've gone into the virtual world and you
Mhm.
thought, like I've been playing these games in the last couple of days, and there's a couple of times where like I thought bad things were going to happen to me,
Yeah.
and they didn't, and it didn't matter, but I still reacted as if they were going to happen.
Mhm.
And
So.
I wonder if in reality it's the same.
Mhm.
You know, we we are we are tied, we're bound to the thought of the
Mhm.
negativity. We make it real.
Mhm.
We make it real. Yeah, it's funny in the game. It's like you're standing on a ledge, and if you go off the edge of the ledge, you're going to fall down. And you know you're not on a ledge, but you don't want to take the risk anyway.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
such a bizarre feeling to realize how programmed we are for
Yeah.
survival.
Because if your brain believes it's real, what
Yeah,
will actually happen?
yeah. It'll stop you from doing anything. Yeah, yeah. If you
Mm.
if you believe the threat is real, right? You know,
Mm.
there's uh there's no one truly against you if you are truly for you.
Yourself. Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, 4. Uh, have a digital detox. Ignore the negativity of the media. I think that is. Yeah. For 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 people who have a history of negativity, that means their parents were negative to them when they were young. There's this tendency for the adult to then the child who becomes the adult to then overreact to negative comments, to go back to the child state of mind. And I've noticed that personally, if somebody writes something negative about me online, it might stay in my head for 2 or 3 days afterwards, which is ridiculously stupid. Because
Mhm.
and why? Why
Do
do
you, if somebody writes something positive, do you keep it in your mind for 2 or 3 days?
no,
It should
no.
be the same. See?
Yeah.
Mm.
I agree. And that's how the brain is wired. The brain is very often wired in people to focus on that negative element and think about it. But it's a choice, right? Choice, and eventually we have to train ourselves to, you know, let go of it. It doesn't matter. Realize, was what I said earlier about context. People don't have the context to criticize. No, basically no one has the context to criticize in most cases. There are a few unique examples. Someone who's very knowledgeable about a topic,
Mhm.
someone who has a lot of experience can venture into some level of criticism. But there is no argument that is perfect. There's no argument without flaws. There's always space for making things better, and always. 5. Consider, is the thought helpful? That's great. There's, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it important? Is it nice? Is it kind? Right? Um, keep keep an understanding of those principles. Um, if it's
How
not a,
about true? If it is real and true, but it's not nice and positive.
find a more intelligent way to approach the situation. Um, if another person is involved,
Hmm.
ask them what they think or how they feel about the topic.
Okay, thank you.
Um, I think for people who are sensitive to our opinions and feelings, it will always be obvious what we think or how we feel. We don't need to tell people
Hmm.
a lot of the time. At the same time, we need to express what it is we're going through. But the better a person knows us, the more intuitive it becomes. Um, 6, real problem versus imagined scenario. It's talking about imagination. That very often the imagination thinks about the worst possible things that can happen as a result. Um, it's not always bad because you can you can channel it so that you avoid certain problems. My mind is always troubleshooting. It's like, if I do this, what are the possible problems that could happen, and how do I avoid those personal problems? How do I avoid those problems on the way? My mind is always doing that. Like before I have a Skype call with somebody, my brain is going through the 20 or 30 possible problems that could happen, and how do I make sure that those problems don't happen during the call.
Mm.
So you can take that negative habit and use it to give yourself an advantage, and hopefully give other people
Mhm.
an advantage as well. Over analyzing can be used at certain times to benefit rather than be negative.
Mhm.
Uh, 7, don't take things personally. Um, yeah. Yeah, you got to disconnect. You got to disconnect yourself and realize that if you're a progressive
It's not
person,
about me, but it's about the other person. What
well,
they saying.
well, criticism
And it's perfect.
criticism
Yeah.
is, but as long as we're growing, we can
Mhm.
understand changes. We understand that the problems are necessary because what was acceptable before is no longer acceptable if we progress and get better. Um, and that's how we go through life. We try to cook things one way, it doesn't work, so we change and do it another way. We progress, we learn, and as long as we're growing, we don't take it personally. Where we take things personally is when we
Stop
tend to
growing.
we stop growing. We tend to feel that we're stuck somehow, which is uh, which is usually not true. But again, think contextually about things. Most people don't have the context for criticism. Um, as you said, it's criticism is autobiographical. We covered that before as well. Um, we all write about our own histories. Um,
Phew, yeah, heavy thought came through my mind.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
And 8, the last one was ask for help and assistance. And it, it's amazing. You have to ask for help in the right place and the right kind of assistance. A lot of help can be the wrong kind of help as well. Um, Again, that's discernment. That's the skill, the ability to understand. Some people who work as personal development counselors are really, really good, and some are not.
Mm.
Same with doctors. Some are really good, some are not. So this ability to separate those things and realize what is good and what is not good are very important. Because that means we're still thinking, and as long as we're still thinking, we can correct things and make things better. Um, and that's key.